Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Congratulations on your presentations, and thank you for your attention. I am Claudia Gaytan. I'm a PhD student, and I work with PhD Neftali Rojas Valencia from Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México at UNAM. Today, I'm going to present the project in development, recycling potential valorization of construction and demolition waste for sustainability in Mexico City. And I'll analyze the evaluation of construction and demolition waste that I'm going to call CDW from now to carry out sustainable projects in Mexico City to reduce the environmental impact that these have when they are disposed of without use. Also, the interest in addressing these problems came from the large amount of CDW that is generated in big cities like Mexico City. In Mexico City, more than 14,000 tons per day are generated without, and also disposal without being used, despite the existing regulations that govern them in Mexico City, as environmental normative 007 that governs in Mexico City, and in general in Mexico, Mexican normative 164 since 2013. And in this case of urban planning, to make a recovery to incorporate this as recycled materials in sustainable buildings. The environmental problem generated by construction and demolition waste stems from increasing volume and the inappropriate treatment, as well as the limited supply for raw materials. It is estimated that in the world that more than 10 billion tons of construction and demolition waste are generated in the world. For example, China reported 6,000 million tons in 27. That represents between 30 and 40%. Meanwhile, the European Union, 8,020 million tons, that represent between 25 to 30 of total amount in the world. In this case, Mexico City generated more than 14,000 tons of this CDW per day. Even in 2015, were registered 33,600 tons per day without being used, but only 1.8% were recycled. As expected, this number increased by new building, population growth, and so far for other events, as for example, due to earthquake that happened here in Mexico City in 2017, many buildings had to be demolished, and many of them are still awaiting. The importance of solid waste management in the construction industry within the scope of sustainability analyzes situations that support the need to undertake research and innovation with the purpose of improving the environmental performance of the city, and how it is possible to obtain certifications for sustainable buildings. As I mentioned before, we have these main or principal regulations that promotes CDW recycling and the uses that it can have. The main objective I wrote in this PDF will be to characterize physically and chemically CDW components, to identify the recycling potential, to propose in situ lines that guarantee its incorporation to sustainable buildings. Also, to comply regulations. Also identify the minimum criteria to obtain LEED certification, as well as economic feasibility study at the end of this identification of potential recycle. After that, we are going to make an economic feasibility study of the recycling CDW in Mexico City. Solid waste, as we know, are divided into three: hazardous waste, municipal waste, and special handling. These last incorporate construction and demolition waste, that are the solid waste that came from construction, demolition activities, excavation. Their origin can be classified by the construction stage in which they were generated, because this classification is the most common, as well as extraordinary events like earthquakes that I mentioned before. The construction contains many stages that including the preliminary, as the cleaning of the land before construction, the excavation that includes the filling of soil with special machines, like in this case in this photograph, the essential foundation to support the building, and finally the construction that includes the final finishes. In the other side, these waste can come from events like terrorism, earthquakes, that is the case in Mexico in these photographs 3 years ago, wars, tsunamis, and others. Also, it is important to analyze the composition of CDW in works such as commercial, because the composition of urban building will be different, of course, if it is a commercial, because urban CDW will be like wastes that come from roads or bridge, and of course of commercial will be different. Of course, also composition will be affected by the country of origin. In countries where houses are composed mostly of wood, like United States, for example, this material will be replaced by concrete. In other countries, as in the case in Mexico, that here most of the house don't have wood material for the construction. This is replaced by concrete. In the K chart that I represent the quantity of the general composition in Mexico, and we can see that excavation material, concrete, and bricks are the most generated. Other studies of the world determine generally worldwide, and these waste consist of ceramic materials, partitions, block, and concrete. This is in general, but in Mexico, we have these three: excavation, concrete, and bricks. Integrated waste management prioritizes the management stage. How is this? In order to this, prevention is the solid waste always, and the next step is recycling, leaving at the last the final disposal in sanitary landfills. A bad disposal of this waste, of course, has negative effects on the environment, such as the accumulation of bad odors, leakage generation, that is that bad black water with bad odor, noxious fauna, water, and soil contamination, of course. CO2 emissions and uncontrolled disposal in urban sites and green areas. Of course, this representing a risk to public health. Also, within these wastes can be found hazardous waste, as we know, with toxic characteristics, such as asbestos. Once the components of CDW are known, it is known that concrete still have a high recycling potential, as well as block, partition, paver, ceramics, masonry, plastic, glass have a medium-high recycling potential. And as we can see in this chart, in various countries, these wastes have a great potential for recycling in the place where they are generated, which leads to reduction in the consumption of natural materials, where we can obtain the principal material, the raw materials to make these construction materials. In countries like Netherlands, Belgium, Switzerland, and Austria, they have high recycling percentage. Also, in Germany, we have this lead the chart with 97% of recycling in the total amount of the waste they are generating. In this context, we have a great advantage in high recycling potential for use as a raw material in the production of construction materials from this construction and demolition waste. The potential of this waste can be exploited in Mexico in different uses as road bases and soft bases. Drainage, recycled concrete, reinforced concrete, mortar, bricks, partitions, pipe seats, road fillers, landscaping, and gardening. In Mexico, And Mexico existing regulations that govern them in Mexico City, these CDW waste. As I mentioned before, these two that indicate the construction and demolition waste generators must recycle at least 30% the first year, and by increasing this percentage 15% each year until research 100% the total amount of CDW generated. As well, indicate that in the following work, at least 25% of material must be replaced by recycled materials. Replacing them to make roadways, parking softways, asphalt paving for secondary roads, embankment construction, and sanitary landfill cover, and others. Here I present some of the studies with this CD waste at UNAM. My professor is investigations includes manufacture of bricks, partitions like this, fittings, bench, planters, use of using cellulosic waste, as well as nopal mucilage for the manufacture of construction elements, which conclude that these meet the quality required for their function and use. In this picture, we can see a sidewalk made with recycled materials, a prototype of bricks, one made with cellulosic waste from paper industry, and the other made from construction and demolition waste material using a solar desiccator for its fabrication. Mexico City also has 2 recycling plants for these waste, the only 2 in the country for construction and demolition waste. The first is Concretos Reciclados, has been operating since 2004 with a capacity of 2,000 tons per day to produce recycled concrete. And the second one is Concretos Sustentables Mexicanos, that is under planned construction, and it is tentative to operate in March, which will have a capacity of similar of before of 1,000 tons per day, and will be the first plant in Mexico to receive mixed construction and demolition waste. The importance of sustainability in construction industry will analyze the situation that support the need to undertake research and innovation to improve the environmental performance of the city, and how it is possible to obtain certification for sustainable buildings. LEED certification is an example. It establishes sustainability criteria in order to certificates. This certification can be obtained with the obtaining of certain number of points. In category 4, it is possible to obtain 14 points, which promotes the certification, the reuse of these construction and demolition materials. Mexico ranks second place in Latin America with the highest number of LEED certification. Until 2015, Mexico had reported 139 certification and 460 planned. And here is a map. We can majority are in the central area. I'm going to zoom here in the central area, and most are in Mexico City. The sustainable design not only will obtain certificates, but it will contribute to reduce the amount of this construction and demolition waste in landfill disposal without use. Of course, decreasing the environment effects, promoting the possibility to reach sustainable development objectives. In this case, in LEED certification, we can have one from 4 options, and depends of the points that you get, you can get this certification. For this project, I would like to mention preliminary conclusions. As CDW Mexico City, as I mentioned before, are principally made up from excavation material, concrete partitions, plaster. They have high recycling potential. As I mentioned before, mostly filling material on roads, using them on roads, sidewalks, planter, and as well as recycled concrete. It is possible to use this waste generated in Mexico City as a construction material to obtain a LEED certification. In Mexico, many studies have been carried out on the recycling on sidewall generally sidewall and bricks, republics. However, there are still materials that require further research to be incorporated as recycled materials. Therefore, the objective of this research project is to assess the complete 100% recycling potential of 100% of construction and demolition waste. And this is all from my side. Thank you for your attention, and I appreciate if anyone have a question. Of course, I can answer it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Claudia, for your wonderful presentation and very informative. Thanks for your participation too. If anyone have any questions or comments, you can please go ahead and ask Professor Claudia.
Me, please. Congratulations, Claudia, for your presentation, and it's a good topic. Well, what do you think is the solution to change the mentality in which users want to implement these recycling and accreditation measures?
Okay. Thank you, Giovanni, for your question. I think would be important economic incentives from the government to public private institutions that use or incorporate waste in your incorporation into their buildings will be a good incentive to increase the reuse of this construction and demolition waste in Mexico. Also, I think adopting good practice from other countries, economic support from government to investigation institutions, I think to adopt technology, recycling to use it here.